Starting with,
Let's talk about Young Thug's criminal trial and this whole situation, because even if you're unfamiliar with him, it is a wild ride. Right, so if you don't know him, he's 32-year-old Jeffrey Williams, more commonly known as Young Thug. And he is a legendary Atlanta rapper who launched himself from a life of poverty into one of massive stardom over a decade, earning 3 #1 albums on the Billboard chart, collaborating with the likes of Drake, Future, Kanye West, and Travis Scott. But last year, his blossoming career was suddenly cut short, with a grand jury indicting him and many other defendants on charges of criminal racketeering, gang conspiracy, and several gun charges. And this because, according to prosecutors, Young Thug spearheaded a violent street gang known as YSL, or Young Slime Life, which they say is a local subset of the Bloods. And allegedly, he ordered and oversaw crimes including murder, attempted murder, armed robbery, witness intimidation, and drug dealing. But Young Thug has pled not guilty to all of the charges alongside 5 other co-defendants, and this notably with them being the only holdouts after the initial pool of 27 co-defendants got whittled down by guilty pleas and severed cases. Now, in his defense, Young Thug claims that YSL is merely his record label, Young Stoner Life Records, with it using a gangster image in its music and videos because of tough life circumstances and because that's just what sells. His lawyer is also arguing that he was just too busy filming music videos, performing concerts, and earning money to actually lead a street gang. But there, even if he didn't commit the crimes himself, prosecutors argue that the gang members did them in service of Young Thug and did so with his approval. Or like in one incident, YSL members allegedly shot at Lil Wayne's tour bus while he was in town just to assert their dominance. In another, YSL members allegedly asked Young Thug for approval to stab rival YFN Lucci in jail. But really, at the trial's heart is the 2015 drive-by shooting of Donovan Thomas Jr., known as Nut or Big Nut. Because as well as having ties to artists like YFN Lucci and Rich Homie Quan, Thomas was allegedly a high-ranking member of another blood subset known as the Inglewood family. And his death sparked a gang war that prosecutors say led to more than 50 violent encounters. And these prosecutors claim that Young Thug helped arrange the killing, renting the car that was used in the drive-by, and then gave the shooters cash and directions to lay low. And part of the reason we're talking about this today is that the trial has finally begun. And apparently one of the reasons it took so long to get to this point is that this is expected to last several months, so few jurors were actually willing to sit through it. But then also things were delayed by a series of very weird shenanigans, let's call it. Like, for example, a court deputy was arrested for an alleged romantic relationship with a defendant, or one of Young Thug's co-defendants apparently passed him a contraband baggie of Percocet pills in the courtroom on camera right in front of bailiffs. Then another defendant was allegedly found to have marijuana hidden in a second pair of underwear. One of the defense lawyers was also arrested for possession of more prescription drugs. And then he tried to toss his phone to another defense attorney so it wouldn't be subject to a search in jail, but he missed and hit a deputy instead. And that also landing him another charge for assaulting an officer, though that was later dropped. Also, if you thought I was done, I am not. A potential juror was sentenced to 3 days in jail for filming the court proceedings on her cell phone. The judge also ordered a potential juror who didn't show up for a court appearance to write a 30-page essay as punishment. He also ordered a tardy lawyer to buy everyone lunch from a nearby strip club. And so after 567 days of just absolute nonsense like that, the jury was selected and the trial finally kicked off on Monday, with a panel of 12 jurors reportedly including 7 black women, 2 black men, 2 white women, and 1 white man. And if he's convicted on all charges, Young Thug could face up to 120 years in prison. So the stakes here extremely high, and already we're seeing the trials off to a rocky start, with the defense complaining that the prosecutors had wrongly shifted the burden of proof in their opening statement, making it seem like the defendants would have to prove their innocence. Then you had the defense accusing prosecutors of showing the jury evidence that was banned from the case, with Young Thug's lawyer asking the judge for a mistrial request that was ultimately denied, though the judge did reprimand the prosecutors. Also, we should get to the actual arguments of the case, because a huge sticking point in this trial is the use of YSL's rap lyrics as evidence, because the label's music often contains references to drugs and describes acts of violence and other criminal activity that prosecutors argue is connected to real events. For example, Young Thug's song Slime Shit talks about 100 rounds in Tahoe, a line that supposedly refers to Donovan's killing in a Chevy Tahoe. But there you had Young Thug's lawyer arguing that he rapped about various cars often, and there was no evidence of when that lyric was even created. But also, notably there, it wasn't just the lawyers, but many people in the music industry, fans, and activists who have criticized the use of song lyrics in this way. And they're arguing that it's not just a violation of the artist's First Amendment rights, but specifically an attack on black culture. With the CEO of Warner Music's 300 Entertainment, which YSL is an imprint of, telling reporters outside the courthouse, if this were country music, rock music, we wouldn't be here. And Young Thug's defense lawyer arguing, yes, he speaks about killing 12, Atlanta slang for the police, and people being shot, and drugs, and drive-by shootings. This is the environment he grew up in. These are the people he knew. These are the stories he knew. These are the words that he rhymed. But there you have prosecutors arguing that the lyrics are more comparable to a killer's manifesto than a piece of art, because they say YSL was more than just a record label. It was a gang. With the deputy district attorney saying, we didn't chase the lyrics to solve the murder. We chased the murder and found the lyrics. And there, apparently the judge agreed, because he allowed 17 sets of lines from Young Thug and other YSL artists to be used as evidence. And while these arguments are more serious, a lot of people online have fixated on kind of the almost comical moments. Like when you had the defense explaining that Thug and Young Thug doesn't have any criminal connotations, but rather it's an acronym, THUG.
It was his path that if he could ever make it as a musical artist and help his family, himself, and his many others out of this endless cycle of hopelessness, he would be truly humble under God. That's what thug means.
Or when discussing an Instagram photo in which Young Thug appears to be holding up a Bloods gang sign, making the letter B with his hand. The defense there countering that his fingers are actually pointed downward, so it's not a B, but a P, which they say refers to one of his songs, Pushin' P, and supposedly that doesn't mean pushing power or drugs, as many presume, but rather...
It's called pushing P, and it's positivity. It means any circumstance you're in, if you think positively about something, you can make it through. You're pushing positivity.
Then in another viral clip, a defense attorney goes on a bizarre tangent about anime, where they're there seemingly trying to make an analogy to her client, who she says is just being lumped into the trial with Young Thug as filler.
This reminds me of this anime named Bleach, where it's 16 seasons. Every season's 18 to 20 episodes. And they have season 4 and 5. They have these bouts. They're the villains of the whole thing in season 4 and season 5. The main characters are trying to get them out of Soul Society. You go to season 6, you don't hear about the bounce. You go to season 7, you don't hear about the bounce. Why don't you hear about these important characters? Because they're filler characters. It's a filler season. Me and Rodalius, we're fillers. We're not integral to this story.
And all of this, keep in mind, while we are only on day 3 of this trial, with many more months ahead. And oh, I forgot one of the weirdest things about the situation. This Young Thug case could actually have implications for the Georgia trial of Donald Trump. Because as it turns out, the Fulton County District Attorney prosecuting Young Thug, Fani Willis, that's the same person going after Trump for attempting to overthrow the state's election results. And not only that, she's charging both men under the RICO statute, originally designed to dismantle organized crime groups like the mafia. Because notably, the law carries a looser standard of proof, since the state doesn't have to prove that they knew about or ordered all of the crimes, only that they were the head of an enterprise that carried them out. So the trial of Young Thug could actually serve as a test case for the DA's creative use of the RICO statute, and that may actually affect who is the next president of the United States. So yeah, wild times. And then some people are